If you look around right now, that almost everyone is carrying some type of debt. You've got credit cards and student loans and car payments and everything else. And for a lot of people, it's not even the debt itself that's the real issue. It's the feeling that no matter what you do, you're not getting ahead. You try to make those payments, it doesn't happen. And of course, it's like sitting in quicksand. Well, that's why I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I brought someone in who is actually working with this hands on day today, and we're going to go through real practical steps that you can actually use to get your finances under control. I'm not talking about the generic pay your bills on time, but tips that actually make a noticeable difference. So some of these things you may have never heard about before. I never heard about some of them. And you can actually see how things like timing the payment, paying a certain amount on a certain day, makes a big difference. What about my story of how there was identity theft against me and it completely destroyed my credit? And you're going to see how simple changes that are actually going to make such a big difference in what you pay month to month, if you can believe it or not. Okay. So, Smart Credit helped make this video possible and allowed me to bring you the insight directly from the people who handle this credit and debt situation for people every single day. And so, whether you are trying to rebuild your credit, you're interested in lowering your monthly costs, or you're trying to protect yourself from fraud, this conversation is going to give you something to walk away with right now. I'm going to show you the practical steps. We're going to get into it right now. Let's begin. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I have a special guest. Jimena is with us from Smart Credit, and she is an expert at all things related to credit and debt. And we are going to get into some amazing things today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about a few things, including my personal fraud story, but the biggest thing, the most exciting thing that I wanted to discuss, we have to make sure to get into this, is all about reducing your payments, because people
hmm
don't realize the amount that they're paying on their car payments, for instance, is higher than likely they should be paying, that they need to be paying. So let's get this down. Let's reduce it. And any tips that you can share with us will be really, really appreciated.
Absolutely. I mean, for the biggest thing, right, is what is your credit? So I want to share my screen with you real quick and just go into a real loan calculator for a vehicle. So if I have, let's say I'm at a 725, I want to do a 60 months, a 5-year car loan. Let's say my car amount is $40,000. Here's my monthly payment. Here's my interest rate. Not too bad. Now, let's say my credit score is a 620. Look, I can't even get a loan for that amount. It automatically drops the loan amount to 30,000. So that's the most I can be approved. And look at how much that interest rate jumped up. Now I'm at 15%. So now I'm paying just about the same for a car that costs $10,000 less. So I'm paying a ton of interest just with 100-point difference. So even though can you get a car with a 620 credit score? Absolutely. You're seeing it on the screen. But do you really want to? Wouldn't it be better if we just got an extra 100 points, got ourselves a nicer car and paid less for it?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, so the difference is staggering. And that's why I am so glad that I found Smart Credit. So way before I was working at Smart Credit, I actually was a customer and I ended up revitalizing my credit using the system. And that's how I was able to buy my Lexus. Up until that point, I was driving a car that I'd had for 10 years because of the same issue right here. I couldn't get a good interest rate. I couldn't get a loan for the car that I wanted. And so I had to wait until I did something about my credit in order to be able to get that car. And a lot of people have also this misconception that, let's say maybe you had credit card debt and you stopped paying your credit cards and you're like, well, they'll just fall off in 7 years. Well, things just don't always fall off in 7 years. And then you got to ask yourself, do you want to really wait 7 years to take action on something that you want in your life? I mean,
Absolutely. You know, it's people need to realize this, just like the national debt, just like all forms of debt, this is money that's literally going down the sink. We could be applying that to something else. So we have to do everything that we can to make this circumstance better. And one of those things, just getting our credit rating to improve, which doesn't really take that much. It's a few steps, and it can significantly reduce our expenses every given month. And as we see inflation's taking hold, all payments are going up for everything that we have. Let's do everything we can. Let's take those steps. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm also interested in discussing the payment schedules,
Yes.
because when we look at the amount that people are paying and the fact that people have multiple types of borrowing, they have their mortgage payment, they have their car payment, and so on. I think it's important to look at the payment schedule. And I didn't realize this, but your payment schedule drastically affects your credit rating in many ways. You can actually, you know, make a big change with just a small movement. And if you
Absolutely.
could please break it down for me, thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to log into a test account so that you guys can see how this works. So funny story. Well, not funny like haha, but like, this actually really happened. So a few years ago, I was at a 740 score for just like the longest time. Do you see my screen? Do you see the smart credit
Yes.
inside? Okay, perfect. So I was at a 740 for the longest time. I had no late payments. I'm paying my credit cards at the end of the month, every month. And I'm just like, I don't know how to get any higher than this. And 740 is pretty good. So I wasn't really, like, I wasn't feeling like bad about it or anything, but I was just wondering like why I couldn't go any higher. And then when we developed this feature, which is called the score boost, which I'm going to show you guys right now, so here's what I was doing. I was paying my credit cards on the last day that the credit card company allowed me to. And so by the time I was making my payment, the credit card company was reporting that to the higher balance to the bureaus. So once we developed this, and so what this does is here you see how much debt I have, right? I just moved the dial to what I can afford to pay on my cards this month. So that the system's going to take this budget and it's going to look at the balances on my credit card and tell me how much to pay on each card, and the most important thing is by what date, so that my credit utilization is the lowest that I can possibly afford. So you see here these dates. This is when each credit card company is going to report to the bureaus, and that's different for every credit card company. And then you see here, based on this payment amount, this is approximately how many points my score will go up. And so when I did this at a 740 and I just changed my payment dates, was still paying the same amounts every month, my score went up to a 790. So a 50-point difference just by literally changing the payment dates on when I'm paying my credit cards.
To me, that's unbelievable, right? Because people are thinking, okay, if I have until this date, I'm going to pay it up until that date. And just by changing one little thing, it's going to make a big difference. Of course, that depends
Mm,
on your debt circumstances and all that. The debt utilization, I think that's also important too. That's really what this is about. This payment schedule is how much debt you really have and how much you're using. So that also depends on when you're going to get a mortgage. That's one of the things they're going to look at too. They're going to say, how much debt does this person have? How much are they using? And then
mhm.
compare those two. That ratio is an important thing. You want to have a lot of access to debt. You don't want to use it all, right? That's another important thing to
Yeah,
think about. So I just love the fact that, just by changing the day that you're
same thing.
paying it on, suddenly your credit score is boosted. Our credit
Let's
score is
shave
something
weeks off the
that
grind. Now
you
you know
may
your
not
real rate
necessarily
and the
care about
dealership
it
has to beat it.
until you need
Negotiate the
it,
out the door
and
price.
then you
Yeah.
I
realize, oh
picked
my
the one I'll
goodness,
stick
I
with.
got to get the score boosted up. And
Consistency
I'll
beats
I'll tell you in a
perfection.
second about that story. But if you have some more points to make.
No, I mean, the only thing that I would like to say is just to reiterate the importance of this part of your credit rating. Credit utilization accounts for 30% of your credit grade. So it is a significant part. And that's why I experienced such a big jump just by making that change. So I would say, before you're going to go apply for any sort of loan or even go apply for an apartment, use a tool like Smart Credit. Go in, see how many points you have available to gain, get your points, and then go apply. What a lot of people do is they go apply and then they see surprises on their credit report that they didn't know about, and then they go do something about it. That's doing it backwards. See your points first, get your points, which obviously you can see here it's not that difficult. You just got to make some payments and then, do it with the right strategy and then go apply.
100%. Um, so I would love to talk about my personal story because it's something that derailed me personally. So I was making all my payments, never had an issue. Everything I believed at the last time I had checked, I had a perfect credit rating. Everything was going well until one day I find out that I didn't pay a payment. Now, I thought to myself, wait a second, that's impossible. How did this ever happen? Well, it turns out that wasn't me. That was identity theft. And somebody
Mm.
used my name, and I looked at the address and it was somewhere way far away. And I thought to myself, oh, that's a problem. And it took months and months of emails, calls,
Mhm.
conversations to try to get that resolved. And they were saying, well, you got to prove it. You got to prove it. I'm saying, that's not me. That's not me. Then they acknowledged it. It was my internet service provider. They acknowledged that this was incorrect. So I said, well, now I got to fix it with the credit ratings. And that took forever to get done for me. I didn't know what I was doing. And the process was long, and it absolutely killed my credit rating. I was at nearly perfect, probably. And then it brought me down into the 500s
Wow. How
because it
much
dragged on for so
time
long.
would you say if you had to count how many hours this took of your life, how much time would you say that was?
Oh my God. I don't even know. It was like,
100
it
hours,
must have
maybe?
been, yeah, I don't even know. More than 20 hours for sure, just in the
Yeah.
calls and emails.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And it just, the problem is that it dragged on for so long too.
Yeah.
And so this was a real big thing. And this is coming from somebody who was paying all of their payments. I wasn't late. Somebody else screwed me over. So
Mhm.
if there's anything that you could say on this topic as well, I would appreciate that. I learned the hard way.
There is a lot to say on this topic. So, on average, the stat is that you'll spend about 100 to like 120 hours trying to resolve an identity theft issue, which, one way to look at the financial cost of that is to say, okay, well, what do you make per hour? Like, and if you own a business, right? It's like, okay, what's my income? And then divided by 40 hours a week. That's your hourly rate. So now you multiply your hourly rate by how much time this took out of your life, plus the stress. We can't even quantify that. So it could be a lot. And we've done a lot to also protect you and your credit. It's not just about building your credit. I think that's just one part of it. The other part is to maintain it and keep it protected from situations like this. So we've certainly put a lot into the platform for this very reason, and it can be so stressful. So um, every account is going to come with $1 million of identity fraud insurance. It's going to cover you and your entire family that lives in your household. So you guys are protected there. It helps with like out-of-pocket expenses and just getting everything back together. So that's good. Other services are going to charge you around $12 a month for this. So that's a huge value, $144 a year. The biggest thing though that I love that we've built in is our privacy master. And so if I click into that, you see that it's scanning. Now this tool scans every 14 days. And the reason why it's going to scan every 14 days is because it'll find your website. I mean, it'll find your information being sold on other sites. So you can see here, it found it. You can click into that and it'll have a screenshot of what it found so that you can verify that it's actually you. And if it is you, you just want to click remove. So now that moves down here, it's pending removal. So now the system is going to go and make that request for you. So you don't have to individually go to any websites and make requests, which you absolutely can do. You don't have to hire a service to do this for you. It's just going to take you a heck of a lot longer. And the thing is, the reason why we scan every 14 days, even though your information may have been removed off a site, it does tend to show back up a few months later. So it's a constant like cat and mouse
Yeah.
game that you're playing with these companies.
There are the services that they have out there, Incogni, Delete Me, and so
Yeah.
on. That's anywhere from $10, $20 a month for those
Yep.
services.
Exactly.
And basically what it's doing is scanning all of the different websites out there, looking at all the data brokers, and then one by one you could go and send them a request removal, and you have to go in there every week or 2 weeks or month or whatever it is and hope that they would accept you. You can do it manually if you desire.
Yeah, it could take a long time. And so you're better off either paying one of the services, the 20 bucks a month, or just it's free, it's included within the Smart Credit platform, so you can have that done there. Now, another thing that we've built in that it deals not just with identity theft, but also with late payments and payment history. So payment history is going to be 35% of your overall credit score. And so you see here in the score builder, it says I have 105 points to gain from there. So it's going to walk me through a little tutorial of helping me understand my credit score. So it'll say, okay, so these accounts here are in good standing. Nice. And then these accounts here, we've got some issues. They're hurting your score. Now, most places would stop there, give you some advice, but you still have to either hire somebody or take some actions on your own to resolve these accounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an action directly from the platform. And you can see here, my first quote unquote problem account is HSBC Bank. I have a 90-day late. So you can see here, if this account was the result of identity theft, I would click identity theft. And then we would send a letter directly to HSBC Bank to let them know that this is not you, this is identity theft. Please take this off my credit report. Now, if this is your actual account, there's other things we can do, right? Let's say this is a credit reporting error. Let's say I was not 90 days late, I was 30 days late. Now, each late carries a different weight as far as how many points you lose. So a 30-day late is not as bad points-wise as a 90-day late is. So maybe I do that. I go fix credit reporting error. Let's say this is all correct information. I really was 90 days late. Okay, well, maybe I just want to request a goodwill correction from HSBC. And here we have a lot of different reasons, and they all look the same, like when you click into them. So I do that, or I can type in my own reason or add to it. And then when I click the blue button, we're going to send a letter to HSBC Bank to make this request. Now, this is not an email that we're sending. It's either a physical letter or a fax that is being sent on your behalf.
So you got ahead of me because that was actually the question I wanted to know. Requesting removals, because this is, I'm quite ignorant on the subject, but I do understand that this is something that you can do. And in fact, in many cases, you can get things removed off your reports, which would significantly improve your credit rating. Now, how would somebody go about doing this? What's the process with it, and what ultimately, what are the chances of success?
So this is being sent directly to the creditor. We're not sending anything to the bureaus. So I would say this is the first step. If you're trying to resolve something, just go directly to the source, because just because you send a letter also doesn't mean they're going to approve it. So you've got about a 50-50 chance here, right? But this is your first line of defense. I send the letter to HSBC Bank. If they approve it, then they will notify all three bureaus on my behalf. So I don't have to do anything else. Now, if they deny it, I have now the option to go the bureau route, but I would always start here because this is the source that is reporting this. So to try to resolve it with them first so that it resolves it across all bureaus.
What kind of what kind of reasons could we have for them to remove it?
So
What
on the
are
goodwill
they?
correction, you could have experienced a hardship. You could say, I am a longstanding customer. I request a goodwill removal because I've been with you for 18 months. I've never missed a payment. Somebody died. I had depression. I couldn't get out of bed for a month, whatever it was. And then you say, but now I'd like to, get current on my account, or I'd like to work with you. And then, start there. But there's a lot of reasons. I would say just tell the truth.
Okay.
Tell them what
And
actually happened.
you're saying we should do this not by email, but by actual physical mail.
Yes.
And that just increases the chances that somebody will respond to it and not just kind of get pushed aside.
Exactly.
Interesting. So people have the option to go and physically mail these things in, or you could pay $1 and get the. I twisted her arm and I managed to get 7-day trial for $1 if you use that link. But they can go that route. Would this goodwill correction be part of that if they're on the trial?
Yes, you can still use the goodwill corrections on the trial. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So there are, so just so you guys know, if you were to just hop off this video and go straight to Smart Credit, there is no trial on our website. You have to click David's link because that link is tied to the trial offer so that you can test drive this before you commit to paying any sort of money. There are two different types of memberships. The only difference between the two memberships is whether or not that includes a 3 bureau report, and there are some differences on the score builder. So on the less expensive membership, you can only send a couple of letters out. So there's some limitations, whereas on the higher membership, it's unlimited. And you also can see all three scores. If you don't have the membership that has all three scores, you're still seeing we call it the 1 bureau score. And this is coming from either TransUnion or Experian. That's where we get our feeds. So they kind of, toggle. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I would just go with the higher membership. It's not that much more money. And if you go on that from the trial, you have access to everything. You've got the 3 bureau report. You can send unlimited letters, depending on how many late payments and things you have. So that's just the better option.
Awesome. Okay. So we have people that are watching this video right now. They've learned how to improve their credit score in different ways. Maybe it's going to result in them paying less money on their car payments. They're going to potentially affect their payment schedules so that they can actually increase their credit score literally by just paying on a different day. Identity theft is a huge thing. They should be protecting themselves, and we can request removals directly from the source. So we learned, in my opinion, a lot of things, but if there is one more tip that you can give, we would really appreciate that. Anything that you could think of for the people watching.
Let's see. Well, you know what? I would say in this day and age, whether you use smart credit or not, obviously I'm biased towards smart credit. I would prefer that you do, but whatever you decide to use, you have to have a service like this. You can't afford not to if you live in the United States, right? Because your information is out there. People can find it. So if you're okay with that, don't do anything. If you're not okay with that, if you don't want random strangers, like let's say, you're somebody that's on the dating app, somebody can just literally get your phone number and your first and last name, and then they can find out where you live. Do you want random people like that showing up at your house? I don't know. And so there's that aspect of it. And there's a lot of times, I mean, I believe the stat is like 30% of credit reports have credit reporting errors in them, meaning like there's wrong accounts listed on their accounts that are not theirs, or there's the wrong timeline, like, 90 versus 30 days. There's a lot of credit report errors on people's credit reports. And so you have to have something that's constantly tracking your credit report, something that's monitoring anybody trying to open up accounts and just keeping you protected and having the protection. If you do have the identity theft happen, like, well, what can you do? David dealt with this. Do you really want to deal with that without having any sort of support and help? I mean, for, a few dollars a month, for like literally the cost of 3 Starbucks coffees, you can have all of this protection on something that is so important in your life, which is your credit. I mean, I don't think it's something you can afford not to have, whether it's with us or somebody else. These are things that it's just part of like the things that you have, just like you have car insurance on your car, just like you have home insurance on your home. This is just a thing that you have for your identity, you know?
Yeah. A lot of people, what I would say is they should be looking at their personal circumstances, try to improve their credit rating as much as possible. Even if you don't think you need it, there's going to be a day where you're like, oh, I need the access to it. And then you don't. And then you got to start working on it. And you wish you had done it earlier. Just like investing. It's just like when we're investing, we need to invest long before we actually need to, reap the rewards of that. So we got to start early. So I would highly recommend just doing everything you can now today, improve that credit rating, learn how to do that, the whole process, and be able to get the highest rating that you can. That's going to lower your payments. That's more money in your pocket. I, for one, would rather pay myself than pay interest. Just like the national debt, they're paying, $1 trillion on interest payments before it goes back into the system, and the education and the healthcare and everything else. It's going to interest. Let's do whatever we can to lower our own interest payments. And, these are just a few things. So I really appreciate your help here to
Thank
inform
you.
us and let us know the simple things that can be done.
And also, one last thing, David, we didn't get to talk about this too much because we talked about the car loan, but even on a home, right? If you see my screen right now, the average home right now across America is about 500,000. Look at how much, look at even this calculator is telling you, you know, with a 760 versus a 680, this is how much you would save on interest over the life of the loan. So $50,000. That's a lot of money. And over here, I mean, you were saving thousands of dollars too. I mean, this is something you just can't afford not to do,
That's
you know?
huge. I mean, just think about that. If that was compounding in an investment over that
Mm,
period too, if you drop, instead of dropping it on the interest, you dropped it into some sort of, investment type of thing, and it just compounding even at a few 5% a year or something. I mean, that's a huge difference, more than 50,000. So, this is something that I really strongly believe in. So, again, thank you for sharing these tips with us today. Again,
absolutely.
to everybody watching, use the link because that's where you get the $1 7-day
Mhm.
trial. And, I want you to check it out and give me feedback.
Thank you so much for having me here, David. If anyone has questions, just put them in the comments, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Bye.